But I also have noticed that his targets are all people who are sincere, non-crazy, non-hateful opponents of neocon politics. And Nick Fuentes, this child, this weird little gay kid in his basement in Chicago.
Tucker's mask slipped, and he forgot for a minute that for 8 years he's been pretending to care about the plight of weird kids in their parents' basement living in cities that don't matter like Chicago, and I'm the inauthentic person? What the f*** is even that about?
So with Nick Fuentes, I vehemently disagree on a lot of issues, and I think he's someone with a hardened heart. And before you hardcore Nick Fuentes fans tune out and I lose subscribers here, I would just ask that you stick around for a bit. Because again, he says some indefensible stuff that he's clearly proud of.
When I got into the right wing in 2016, it was about 3 things: hating women, being racist, being anti-Semitic. And I thought everybody was on the same page. As time has gone on, however, the only thing that they remain is racist, and that's it. They just beat up on blacks and Indians all the time. And it's almost making me sympathetic. It's like, guys, we gotta shit on women too. Since Donald Trump became the president, women's bodies are now under our control. I said it's their body, but it is our choice. And politically, I'm obsessed with controlling women's bodies. I'm gonna tell them what they're allowed to do with them. It's my decision. We as men control their bodies. They have no say in the matter, and that comes to abortion as well as every other issue. Men will be controlling what you eat, what you wear, and what your hair looks like. We'll be controlling how much makeup you wear, what you do with your nails. We'll be controlling who you have sex with. We're going to be controlling all of that.
Now, I'm not some woke snowflake who's gonna get triggered over jokes. I have a dark sense of humor. I enjoy a good laugh. And one could argue that the latter part of Nick's rant was satire because who goes that extreme? To which I say sure, if he didn't talk about women all the time in that degrading manner. To me, it just sounds like a dude who got rejected by a girl and then made it his life's mission to hate women. And however you feel about abortion and however uncalled that was for him to say what he said, it doesn't justify people like Maria Rose not only doxing his address, but then also showing up at his home.
Hi. Oh my God, what are you doing?
Get out of here.
And later, Nick gets arrested for assaulting her, facing battery charges for shoving the woman and breaking her phone. And again, I don't like the guy, but you're just as bad if you make him feel unsafe. Nick said unsavory things, yes, but you doxed his address knowing people would intrude upon his right to privacy. Unless the guy was a murderer or a rapist or something, everyone should have the reasonable expectation to feel safe as a citizen. Point being, let's not pretend this is a one-sided incident. She showed up unwelcomed on the property of someone who she knows hates women and then plays the victim when he doesn't take kindly to that. Not to victim blame here, but it is kinda ironic, and in a messed up way kinda makes me chuckle. And why do I bring this up? Because while I think Nick has a lot of horrible views, the one thing you cannot call him is disingenuous. Because while some clips may imply that he cares about the people in Gaza,
and they want us to believe they're the victims. Isn't that interesting? They are the ones perpetrating the genocide in a twist of fate. They are enforcing a genocide against the wishes of the whole world that wants it to stop, that just wants to stop seeing videos of children starve to death. And they say they're the victims. They talk about the Holocaust that happened 80 years ago. They say they're the victims of anti-Semitism. They say they are afraid. If you're one of these rich Jews, of which there are many, who say, I don't like this political culture in America. It's getting hard to be Jewish in America. Really? Imagine being a malnourished 4-year-old in Gaza whose house was exploded by bombs, whose parents died, who is starving to death on the side of the road. Imagine being one of those people. And then hearing from a rich Jew in New York, it's just so hard to be Jewish in America now because someone yelled at me in the street today.
Which I'm talking about because one of my criticisms of him was that he masked his anti-Semitism with caring for people in Gaza. But the more that I think about it, you can actually hear his disdain for Jewish people. It's so thinly veiled, and he's a smart guy. I think he knows that people can see right through it. And furthermore, he's been pretty clear about the fact that he really has this, the enemy of the enemy is my friend type mentality when it comes to Israel and Palestine.
I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't care that much about this conflict. Just like I really don't care that much about Russia and Ukraine. But just like with Russia and Ukraine, this conflict has severe consequences for our adversaries. We believe that the American people should have sovereignty over their own country. It means that we should be able to determine, we Americans should be able to determine how our country is run and what happens in our country. We don't have that right now. Right now, our government is captured by foreign interests, one of which is Israel, one of which is the Jewish maximalist Likud party in Israel, which dominates our government. And if Israel's genocide of Gaza is going to rally international support against them, then once again, this becomes a situation where the enemy of our enemy becomes our friend.
And the one thing the last few years have forced me to do is watch people I disagree with. But the more that I think about it, Nick Fuentes doesn't play mental gymnastics or try to skirt around the fact that he only cares for Gaza out of spite for the Jewish people in Israel. I guarantee in another dimension, if Israel was far-right, Nazi-esque Christian regime, Nick would be cheering on the genocide in Gaza. And recently when Candace was on Tucker's podcast, they seemed to question Nick's sincerity.
Has it occurred to you that, and I just want to say, I haven't watched a lot of Nick Fuentes in my life at all, but what I've seen, the guy's very talented. It is very hard to sit and just like riff for 20 minutes. And I think it's an amazing skill, and he has that skill. And the only reason I know who he is because someone sent me a video a few years ago of him attacking me, and I was like, so I'm looking at this, and he's attacking my dad as a CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever, and I'm like, well, that's no, untrue. Then my father dies, and I learn actually, was involved in that world. I was completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right. Wait, so that was his critique of you because I didn't see it.
Someone just sent me this video and it was like, you can't believe anything Carlson says because his father was in the CIA and he's a CIA working on behalf of the CIA. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, and I actually feel emotional in my anger towards CIA. And I think that comes out on the air quite regularly.
Right.
And so the idea that I'm working for the CIA is like deranged.
I mean, how's it deranged if it's literally the truth that your dad worked for the CIA? And yes, he may not like the CIA, but the fact is the timeline that Tucker's giving now completely contradicts what he said in 2024.
And so when I applied to CIA, and I've taken a lot of crap, including from Putin, like, oh, you're from a CIA family. Well, yeah, obviously my father worked in conjunction with CIA. I mean, that's what that is. And I tried to join the CIA, but I'm not being false about it.
Yeah, I mean, Tucker may not have been misleading about his CIA affiliations, but then why lie about it and call Nick's insinuation that you are CIA bull? I don't know, you don't really have a leg to stand on here. And the fact is that after this, he's really trying to emphasize that he hates the CIA and honestly just seems like some sort of coping.
But I mean, I really hate the CIA. And I mean, right. That's like very offensive to me. So why would you?
It's like personal for you.
Well, a little bit.
Yeah.
And anyway, like, who is this kid exactly?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's just an accident that the guy exclusively goes after people who are in roughly the same. And then he gets up there and he's like, making Holocaust jokes. And it's like, is it possible that this is like David Duke?
It's being driven from like a little boy insecurity. And he just was so worried that he just went on the attack because he doesn't know how to have normal relations after being banned everywhere.
Well, I think that
could be one element.
The angry gay kid thing going on.
Yeah. Or it's he's lying to everybody and pretending that things are one way when it's not. I can say
why is he attacking Joe Kent, who, Joe Kent worked as a CIA contractor, paramilitary contractor. He was in the U.S. military for years fighting our neocon wars. And his wife was killed in Syria in one of those wars. Joe Kent is the single most sincere critic, and I would say the one with the most credibility in the United States to say this foreign policy is bad. It killed my wife. I was a part of it. Joe Kent is actually someone the CIA doesn't like at all because he understands how it operates. And for Nick Fuentes, who's like some child from Chicago, that
is random.
It's not random, though. It's the opposite of random. Joe Kent was number one on the list of people they wanted to knock off, people who believe in our neocon foreign policy. They wanted Joe Kent out because he could stand up and say, I actually know. I've got the receipts. My wife was killed in Syria. You had to take that guy out. And Nick Fuentes, this weird little gay kid in his basement in Chicago, is participating in a super PAC to bump off Joe Kent. It's just an organized effort.
Yeah.
Now, just right quick, for those of you who don't know who Joe Kent is, he is a former representative and CIA operative. And he's also seen by some as far right, for example, on his opinion on January 6th. Just like Nick Fuentes. And he's recently been appointed as Director of National Intelligence. And in 2022, he said he spoke with Nick Fuentes about helping his social media strategy, but stopped associating with him. Why? Well, Kent tweeted in 2022 that he disavows Nick due to his stance on Israel, the US's greatest ally. To which Nick admitted that he made sure everyone in his district knew about his service for the CIA, and Kent lost by 1% in the biggest upset in 2022. And even if you disagree with Nick's tactic to blatantly screw over someone's campaign, he did not do it based on lies. And that sure as hell does not make him CIA, as Tucker clearly insinuates. It's vindictive on Nick's part, but not disingenuous. Then to ad hominem attack Nick, calling him some gay kid in his parents' basement in Chicago, that's low. Well, in Nick fashion, he didn't go down without a fight.
I'm being accused of being the CIA by Peter Thiel's best boys, by Tucker Carlson with his daddy. Tucker Carlson's, and you know what? Here's the other thing. Tucker Carlson said I'm a weird gay kid in the basement. Yeah, and I'm from Chicago. You're right. Well, okay, you're not right about all of that. But I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Tucker Carlson says, I have so many trust funds, I never have to work. Tucker went to a $45,000 per year private high school, then a $45,000 per year selective Ivy League school in New England. Tucker Carlson's daddy was a Reagan appointee. And then, after years of bragging about being an elite, bragging about being so out of touch and so rich, now he's going to be the spokesperson for all the white people. Now he's going to roll up his sleeves. I just like to hunt and fish in my log cabin. I care about Klarna and credit card debt. But then when it comes to me, I'm one of the real disaffected white people. He says Nick Fuentes is leading all of the disaffected young white men. I am a disaffected young white man. I was a precocious, intelligent, young white college student who went to Boston University, who was pro-Trump and red-pilled by Trump and animated by Trump's message of America first. And I asked questions about Israel, and I was punished for it. And I sacrificed, and I was targeted by the ADL, by the SPLC, by the federal government, by the conservative movement that both Candace and Tucker were a part of. Candace and Tucker had nothing to say about Israel until it became unavoidable last year. Not popular, but unavoidable. And now they want to gatekeep me out and do this personality attack and say I'm a bitter loser in my basement from Chicago. I'm a kid from Chicago. I would never describe a well-meaning young white person who's trying to get ahead as a weird kid in his basement from Chicago. And what is that supposed to mean? What is wrong with being from Chicago? What is wrong with being weird? What is wrong with living in your basement? That's a lot of people because of the problems you claim to care about. Tucker's at Turning Point USA extolling the predatory nature of usury and how it's preventing young white men from getting homes. And then the week after says you're in your mom's basement. So which is it? Who's the inauthentic one? Who's the crazy, hateful one? Do you care about Klarna and people going into debt to order pizzas and home ownership being impossible? Or do you think that's a contemptible, low status thing to be ridiculed and mocked? Who's pandering here exactly? Because that wasn't you. You were born to the Swanson family fortune and your daddy who ran the CIA. You know, my dad didn't even graduate college. My dad worked for the tollway. His dad died of a drug overdose in the 70s. My mother's father was a garbage man in Chicago, and he committed suicide. He was a veteran of World War II. Who's the CIA cutout? Who's the poser? Who is America? I am America. Chicago is America. That's an American story.
Now, I'm just going to say that Nick being upset about Tucker and Candace not speaking against Israel until it became popular isn't something that by itself should be a bad look for you. I say that because a lot of people weren't speaking out against it for a long time, including myself. It took a while for me to be blackpilled. So that's one part. But I do like how Nick's calling out Tucker Carlson for being this rich snob who went to private schools. Because Tucker went to the Buckley School, La Jolla Country Day School, and St. George's School prior to college, all of which are private K-12 schools. And then went to Trinity College, which is also private. And as always, there's nothing wrong with growing up rich. I've said this before, it's what you do that matters. But Tucker talking about being a populist while simultaneously talking down on someone who didn't get those same opportunities that you did really makes you lose credibility.
Tucker's mask slipped, and he forgot for a minute that for 8 years he's been pretending to care about the plight of weird kids in their parents' basement who are broke and didn't go to an Ivy League school, living in cities that don't matter like Chicago, not like Washington, D.C. or LA or New York. And that's why he had such disdain and contempt for me in that moment. He's lonely. He's weird. He lives in a basement. I'm sorry, did you guys forget that that's your target audience that you're trying to pander to? Did you forget that for 2 seconds? And I'm the inauthentic person? I am that person. I am a spokesman for the disaffected white man because I am one, and you two are not. Candace Owens got married to British royalty worth $200 million after meeting him for 2 weeks on Zoom. What the fuck is even that about?
And I think this is a great point that he makes, because while I've enjoyed Candace's work, I still do. She's very entertaining. She does a thorough job in her investigations and her coverage, no question. It keeps my attention. But this was an L for Candace, because when she met with Nick, the way she came at him was kind of condescending.
And sometimes when I see the things that you say, I do think, okay, he doesn't take into account family. It's just Nick. Nick is in his own world, which can be, I think, a quite selfish perspective, which is fine. That's what you're saying. You like being selfish is another way to say what you just said. I like being selfish and I don't want to give of myself to somebody else.
I also think there's something selfless involved, which is to say, I could go and start a family and drag them into a world of mine, which is pretty chaotic. I'm getting doxxed. People are showing up to my house trying to kill me, things like that. I also don't appreciate the lecture. You don't know me, so I know you're married. I know you're older than me, but you don't know me. You don't know my life. This is something in the right wing. We say we're anti-feminist, and then women go around telling men what to do who are not their husbands. And, I don't really buy into that ideologically, but that's besides the point. My life has been tumultuous from the very beginning. From the time I turned 18, people were coming for my neck and trying to get me, and I was kicked out of college. And then, once you're branded as an anti-Semite, before it became cool or popular, can't get a job, can't make a living. That's a very difficult environment to try to have a dating life. What do? I go out on Tinder, I go to a bar, and I say, hey, I'm a neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes that the ADL is writing articles about every day. I'm going to start a dating profile on Tinder. It's a very difficult predicament, actually, for me, because I took on basically a huge sacrifice at the beginning. And I don't know that you really appreciate that. I think that you're somebody who, you had a career in politics for as long as I was fighting a battle. You were at Daily Wire with the contract. You're at Turning Point. You're making good money. You're doing book deals. You're part of this thing that I'm criticizing and paying a very heavy price for at a time when no one's saying those things, when it's very unpopular. And it's not to say that I'm a victim, because I did it willingly and I love it and I would do it again. But it is to say that, you and I have lived very different lives, and you had your husband, have your kids, you got your ducks in a row, made quite a bit of money. Then you discover the truth, and then you went out on a limb. And it's not to say you didn't make sacrifices and it wasn't a risk, and it paid off. You're doing great now, and I congratulate you. But with me, there was no calculation. I mean, I almost want to say I was 17. What's your excuse? I was 17 and I woke up, bucket of ice cold water, as you say. I made a lot of enemies, and maybe that wasn't wise. But I told the truth, and I took on an extremely heavy cost for my personal life. It basically has made it so that I can't have a personal life. I don't even have many friends. Forget about, dating women. I can't even really have a lot of male friends because there's such an incentive to betray me, to turn your back on me, because there are people that are being paid to attack me all the time on Twitter for information about me, things like that. So, it's something like everything else that I'm figuring out one step at a time, just like my show. And, when I get banned from something, whether or not I'll be able to have a family and kids and what that'll look like. But I mean, it's a little more complicated, I think, than maybe you understand.
If I didn't know who Nick Fuentes was before this conversation, I would say this was a pretty graceful response. For an anti-Semite and a misogynist, that is. Meaning that, yes, it's very clear he doesn't like when anyone lectures him, particularly women, but in all that he does have a point. He's self-aware enough to realize, in choosing this lifestyle, something he knows was of his own volition and he isn't playing victim, he doesn't feel like he's in a position to raise a family because it would put them in jeopardy that he's brought on. Whereas Candace, yes, she made sacrifices to be an African-American sort of far-right conservative. Whether or not you agree with her viewpoints, you do lose a lot. And Nick acknowledges that, while also saying, look, Candace, you don't get to judge me. You got a contract with Ben Shapiro, and you got married to a British entrepreneur while establishing yourself as a conservative voice. Whereas me, I didn't have any backing, and I had a target on my back, which again, I knew that comes with being an anti-Semite, but you don't get to talk down on my single lifestyle. And I never thought I'd agree with Nick Fuentes, but he's right to an extent. Candace Owens got married when she was 30, and since then they've had 4 kids, which good for her, truly. However, Nick is only 26 years old, so number one, he has time, and also, I tend to agree with Nick on this subject because I am 30 and still unmarried, and as much as I agree with Candace on a lot of topics, I vehemently disagree with the idea that not having a family is selfish. You do you, I'll do me, and that's it. Nick, go off, King, and I mean that sincerely. And overall, the last few years have been a reckoning for me, in the sense that first it's become clear that people like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, who I really liked, are Israel first shills, and Nick Fuentes, who I never thought I'd give the time of day to concede that he's right, that sure as hell was not on my bingo card, but here we are. Now, will I stop listening to Candace because of this? Absolutely not. She keeps me on the edge of my seat. And will I become a Nick Fuentes stan? Probably not. We still have irreconcilable differences, and I don't think he'd ever speak for me if I were unfairly targeted. But as they say, when you're cooking, and with this, Nick ate and left no crumbs. But guys, I want to thank you all for watching this video as always, and if you appreciated my commentary, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, hopefully I've earned a subscription. Here's some more videos for you to watch in the meantime. Until next time, peace out.